Alcohol is meant to be spilled on those you despise. We don't need a dropout like you, so just go back where you came from. No one truly welcomes a broke dropout. Thinking you can talk to me as a dropout, you're a century too early. At my welcome party at the head office, the elite manager, called Kevin, said this to me, who had a low level of education. Then, he went as far as to pour beer over my head. I was utterly stunned by the sudden turn of events. Kevin continued to berate me, but later, during a gathering of all employees called by the CEO, everyone's attention was drawn to the person standing next to the CEO, Mr. Thompson. Let me introduce my right-hand man. With these words, Kevin was about to face divine retribution for his actions. My name is Daniel. Ever since I was a child, I've been known as a prodigy. I could quickly master anything from reading and writing to arithmetic, which made me feel constrained and bored by my surroundings. But even I have my weaknesses. One of them is sports. Being good at studies but not at sports, my classmates would mock me as Bookworm Daniel, or compare me to the tortoise in The Tortoise and the Hare. But it was a natural talent I was born with. Yet, I was so good at studying that I was allowed to skip grades in a touring school, and before I knew it, I was studying high school level mathematics. I remember Mr. Carter, the tutor, being taken aback by me. He probably couldn't stand the idea of a student being smarter than him. As I entered elementary school, I found the classes even more boring since I was already familiar with everything taught. Feeling like I was hearing the same thing over and over, I would audaciously sleep during class, which even got me scolded by my teacher, Mr. Smith. Daniel is such a weirdo. Even when we talk about games, he's not interested because he's such a model student. It feels like he's sneering at me. I don't want anything to do with him. I had no interest in the whispered rumors of my classmates. I couldn't connect with my classmates and would always be reading challenging books at my desk. Often, when I tried to talk about things I was interested in, no one would listen, so I kept my distance from people. Being naturally shy, I gradually closed myself off and eventually stopped going to school altogether. I spent my days studying at home or advancing through grades at the tutoring school. Feeling an emptiness inside, as if something was missing, this continued even as I moved on to middle school. That guy's been a no-show since elementary school. He doesn't talk much, does he? Unable to fit in with my new classmates and not knowing how to, I reluctantly went to middle school for my parents' sake, but eventually, I stopped going altogether. Instead, I started spending my days reading books at the public library. You're here reading every day, aren't you? Aren't you supposed to be at school? I can go because I don't fit in. That must be tough. The library staff, recognizing me as a regular, expressed their concern for me. I was very grateful for that. The librarian, a kind man who listened to me, made me feel comfortable sharing my thoughts without resistance. He would laugh heartily and say, "Well, it's not unusual for young people to go through various things. Just do what you want to do," treating me without judgment and allowing me to frequent the library. Meeting this man at the library was one of the reasons I didn't lose myself completely during my student years. Then one day, as I continued to take refuge in the library, I had a shocking encounter. Drawn to a particular book on design, I became utterly engrossed and fell deeply in love with it. It was the first time I felt such a shock. "Hey, I'm borrowing this book." "Oh, you're quite enthusiastic today. Did you find an amazing book?" "Yes, I did. See you later. Take care on your way home." After borrowing the book from the library, I became so obsessed with reading it at home that I couldn't even eat. Dear Daniel has been reading in his room ever since he got home. He's so engrossed that he can hardly eat his meals. My mom, worried about me staying shut in my room reading books ever since I got home. She mentioned this to my dad, who had just returned from work, and he seemed amused by it, offering a small smile. It's good that he's found something he's passionate about. If you're worried, you could take some sandwiches to Daniel's room later. That sounds like a good idea. If you say so, I'll do just that. With a cheerful mood, Mom headed to the kitchen to start making sandwiches. Despite all the worry I've caused them, my parents never blamed me and always watched over me, which I truly appreciate. With their support, I spent the 3 years of middle school mostly self-studying and dedicating myself to learning about design. At 15, encouraged by my parents, I took the Mensa test. Mensa is an organization for individuals with high IQs, requiring a score within the top 2% of the population for membership. The organization aims to provide a platform for intellectual exchange among its members. My parents thought that for Mensa, I might find friends with whom I could connect, so they encouraged me to take the test. And as expected, I passed on my first try. I was truly grateful to my parents for trying to find a place where I belonged. Among the events organized by Mensa members, such as gaming competitions, quiz contests, and barbecues, which were easy for middle schoolers to participate in, I gradually began to make friends with whom I could engage in conversation. It felt like my closed heart was beginning to open up once again. "My name's Alex. Nice to meet you." Among them, I hit it off with Alex, a man in his 20s, who treated me like a brother. "Why did you join Mensa?" "I couldn't fit in at school, so my parents suggested I try Mensa." "Then you should be grateful to your parents. Having you here makes things a lot more fun for me." Alex grinned and said that to me. I can't express how happy those words made me feel. Having no siblings of my own, I was thrilled to be treated this way, cherished like a younger brother, and it felt like I was learning about morals from him. Time passed, and after graduating from middle school, I started working at the design company I had always dreamed of. Having had a tough time in both elementary and middle school, nobody around me insisted that I go to high school. My parents said that if I ever wanted to attend high school, I could go to night school or take the GED to eventually go to college. I took advantage of that leniency, but I'm really grateful to be able to prioritize a job I love. Despite my struggles with school, I've always enjoyed being in an environment where everyone is dedicated and striving for excellence in design. I'm a bit lost with this part. Let me see. You see, Daniel, this is how you do it. I see. That was really helpful, thank you. Despite being shy and not used to approaching people, I became able to ask senior employees for advice to learn more about design. Feeling myself blending in with others so naturally, contrary to my past struggles with socializing, filled me with a sense of joy deep inside. Although I was still too shy to show it outwardly, I felt like I had made significant emotional progress. It was after some time of training in the field of design. I had received several offers to transfer to the headquarters, but I turned them all down because I preferred the branch office environment where I could focus solely on design. Moreover, as my design skills sharpened, so did my communication abilities through interactions with other employees, which made the work even more rewarding. Daniel, I'm a bit confused about this part. This is how you should do it. Thank you so much, that was very helpful. Responding to a junior colleague's question, I watched them hurry off with a sense of nostalgia, thinking they reminded me of myself when I first started working here. I was even more motivated to stay involved in this work as long as my juniors relied on me. As if reflecting my intentions, I became well regarded for teaching various skills to junior employees. Gone were the days of solitude I experienced as a student. I now found life enjoyable. Thus, I spent many years immersed in design at the branch office. Then, in the spring when I turned 30, I could no longer refuse the transfer to the headquarters and decided to make the move. Thinking it was time to stop insisting on my own way, I took on this new challenge with a fresh mindset. My name is Daniel. I look forward to working with all of you. Known as a genius designer, I was welcomed by most at the headquarters, marking the beginning of a new chapter in my life. However, that was true for everyone except for one person. "Hey, do this for me instead." Oh, yes. Kevin, the elite manager who graduated from a prestigious university and is known for his fast track to success, never even made eye contact with me. Right after I started working at the headquarters, Kevin brusquely handed me some documents and quickly left. The documents required completion by the next day, and it seemed Kevin had intentionally assigned this task to me. Despite being treated this way multiple times, I didn't mind much since I loved my job and considered it part of the work. However, I just couldn't bring myself to like Kevin's attitude. If this had happened during my school days, Kevin's harassment alone would have been enough to break me mentally. But now, stronger than before, I managed to shrug off Kevin's behavior and focus on my work at the headquarters. A few days later, a welcome party for me was organized by the other employees at a bar after work. Drinks were served, and we were about to toast. "Welcome to the headquarters, Daniel. I've heard from the CEO about your positive attitude. We're truly glad to have someone like you on our team. Your experience from the branch office will surely be valuable here, so please give it your all." During the speech, the female employee who was organizing the party turned to me and said those words. Then, she directed her gaze to all the gathered employees and continued her speech. "We surely have much to learn from Daniel as well. Let's join forces for the growth of our company. It's been a long speech, but here's to Daniel's future success. Cheers." Cheers. As the female organizer raised her glass for the toast, the other employees followed suit, each raising their glass in celebration. "Do you have a type when it comes to girls, Daniel?" "Hey, that sounds like you're already attracted to him, Daniel. You might want to steer clear of her." "Why not? And what does it have to do with you, Ryan?" The conversation with my colleagues was lively and enjoyable. Perhaps because of the alcohol, everyone was more talkative than usual. "Daniel, are you drinking okay, or are you strong with alcohol?" "Well, it seems I don't get drunk easily." "Looks like we have a drinker here. Don't hold back. It's your welcome party, and have some more," Ryan cheerfully said as he expertly filled my glass with beer. Then, along with the other employees, I enjoyed the conversation, drinks, and meal with Ryan and the others. After engaging in conversations with my colleagues, I decided to try and close the gap with Kevin and approached him alone. Kevin was eating by himself at a corner table. "Kevin, thank you for coming to my welcome party. Do you like beer? I can pour you some if you'd like," I said. Kevin, maintaining his usual demeanor, didn't even look at me and said, "I don't drink alcohol." But wanting to build a rapport with Kevin, I persisted. "Then, I'll take the alcohol away. I'd like to talk with you, if that's okay." He rebuffed me, saying, "There's nothing I want to talk about with a dropout like you." But then, something Kevin said caught my attention. How did he know I was a high school dropout? I had never shared such information. Kevin, insistent on not speaking to me because of my educational background, seemed to have looked into my personal history. While I was disappointed by Kevin's unwillingness to talk, I was about to leave when something unexpected happened. "Instead, this is what I do with alcohol," Kevin said. Then, picking up a glass filled with beer from nearby, he poured it over my head. Stunned by the sudden act, I couldn't process what had just happened. Looking at Kevin, he was smirking at me. It appeared he had intentionally poured the drink over me. Alcohol is meant to be poured on those you dislike. We don't need a high school dropout here, so just go back home. No one really welcomes a poor dropout like you. As the beer dripped onto the floor, I was dumbfounded by Kevin's words. Kevin seemed to think I was poor and couldn't afford high school. The other employees, married and drunk, were oblivious to our exchange. As Kevin continued to berate me, I became increasingly aware of his insults and almost shouted back. But I held back. Reacting that way would only ruin the welcome party that everyone had put so much effort into. Deciding to distance myself from Kevin, I silently slipped out of the welcome party and made my way home. Thinking I could just come up with some excuse if anyone asked, I left the bar. "Hey, isn't that Daniel?" I was startled by a familiar voice and turned to see CEO, whom I had met for Mensa and had kindly offered me a job at his company, standing outside the bar. Alex. Actually, the CEO was Alex, whom I met for Mensa. Alex pulled me into his company when I didn't want to go to high school, which is why I am here today. But I was just denied that by Kevin. Remembering what Kevin had just done, I felt downcast. Alex looked alarmed to see me drenched in alcohol. "Is that alcohol? What on earth are you doing pouring alcohol over yourself? What about your welcome party?" "The party is still going on inside. The alcohol, well, I had a little mishap, so I thought I'd go change my shirt. Haha." I inadvertently dodged the question and forced a grin. However, Alex gave me a long, doubtful look. Then he let out a huge sigh. "You're really bad at lying. Would you mind telling me what happened?" This time, he smiled kindly. Moved by his kindness that remained unchanged even after our relationship became that of a boss and an employee, I almost burst into tears. I explained everything to him, who then suggested I head home for the day. The next day, at the company meeting, Alex introduced me to all the employees, saying, "Let me introduce my right-hand man." After that, he explained that the reason he transferred me to the headquarters was to prepare me to take over as CEO. He mentioned that I had superior design skills compared to any other employee, and that my communication skills were also up to par, emphasizing that I was the ideal person to lead the company. Alex himself had become interested in venturing into different industries, so he decided to entrust the company to someone like me. Hearing Alex express these thoughts, I felt something welling up inside me as I listened by his side. "I want everyone to understand this. If anyone has any objections, please speak to me," he said. "I'm in favor." Without missing a beat, Ryan, who I had a deep conversation with at the bar yesterday, raised his hand to speak. Ryan continued speaking without hesitation. "My sister works at the branch office, and she told me how much help she received from Daniel. I had the chance to see firsthand what kind of person Daniel is at the drinking party yesterday. I have no objections." Ryan: Me too. He's been so proactive. It's hard to believe he just transferred here, and it's a bit hard to say, but Daniel was even taking on tasks from others without complaining. I would have complained if it were me, but I admired him for that. It's difficult to say who was making those tasks difficult for him," a female employee said, glancing subtly at someone. Everyone's gaze turned in unison to where she looked. At the focal point of all the gathered glances was Kevin. Realizing what was implied, he gave an awkward cough, trying to deflect the situation. Alex sighed, seemingly disappointed. "It looks like there are no objections then. Let's conclude this discussion. Thank you, everyone, and please continue to support Daniel," he said. "Thank you all for your acceptance. I will continue to do my best, so I ask for your continued support." A round of hearty applause was given to me as I greeted them, and I was deeply moved. I was grateful for the support of my colleagues and Alex's help. Could Daniel and Kevin come to my office now? Yes. After the meeting ended, Kevin and I were called into the CEO's office. I responded clearly, but Kevin appeared somewhat sheepish. It was as if he already knew what Alex was about to say. Seriously, he poured alcohol on Daniel yesterday. It's quite something to do such a thing at a welcome party. Didn't he know that Daniel was an acquaintance of Alex? I heard he made fun of Daniel for not attending high school, but to harass someone known to Alex like that. He probably didn't know. That's why he was able to harass him. He was prejudiced against us based on our education too, so he deserved it. He's definitely getting fired. As we moved to the CEO's office with Alex, I could hear the whispers of female employees looking at Kevin. Reacting to that, Kevin, sweating profusely, had already turned pale. "I've heard about yesterday. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, Kevin?" As soon as we arrived in the CEO's office, Alex, with a stern expression, broached the subject. Kevin, turning even paler than pale, immediately apologized, which surprised me with his sudden change of demeanor. Despite how he was with me, seeing Kevin act this way in front of Alex made me take a step back in surprise. "I heard he was a dropout," Kevin stammered, trying to make an excuse, but his words were so jumbled it was hard to understand. He seemed like a completely different person from the usual Kevin. To see Kevin so subdued, I realized how intimidating Alex could be when angry. I had never seen him angry before, even though I knew him, so I was even more surprised. "Kevin, I've heard that you've always judged people on their education. What does his not going to college have to do with his job performance? To entrust the company to a dropout. As a Harvard graduate, I could gather more talented individuals and lead the company better than he could." Kevin, having stopped apologizing, stood up as if revived, desperately making his case. He was watching him quietly, and I was speechless at Kevin's unexpected comeback. "Moreover, it seems you've heard that I've been harassing him, but there's absolutely no truth to that. My actions were merely an attempt to guide someone who was resting on his laurels. It's preposterous for him to play the victim. So, how about making me the CEO instead of Daniel?" Kevin, even at this juncture, insisted on being made CEO. But Ailes, looking at Kevin, let out a huge sigh. "Would you still say the same after hearing this?" "Eh?" Then, Alex took something out of his suit. It was a voice recorder. "This was placed on an employee who talked to you at Daniel's welcome party the day before yesterday. I was the one who requested it. It was probably after I had left. After I coincidentally met him. At that time, he told me to leave it to him and sent me home. I realized that this must have been the reason. But I wondered what was recorded, and as I did, Kevin's demeanor rapidly worsened. He turned pale as if back to square one. Seeing Kevin's reaction, Alex smirked. "From your reaction, it seems you know what you've said, Kevin." "No, but that was." "Before you make excuses, let's take a moment to reflect on what you've said." Saying this, he turned on the voice recorder and pressed a play button. The first thing that came through was the sound of employees chatting happily. Then, a conversation between Kevin and what seemed to be Ryan could be heard. "Kevin, I can find Daniel anywhere, do you know? If it's him, he ran off after I threw alcohol at him. Talking to me is a decade too early for him." "What, you threw alcohol at Daniel? Isn't that bad?" "It was self-defense. He kept trying to talk to me, so I did it. Despite him always dumping his work on me, he still came smiling, which annoyed me even more. Oh, and don't bother telling the CEO I harassed Daniel. No evidence will come out. I'll keep that in mind." The conversation, oblivious to being recorded, showed Kevin talking and Ryan hurriedly leaving. After playing the entire recording made by Ryan, Alex turned off the voice recorder. "That's the entirety of what you said at the welcome party. If we get the surveillance footage from the bar, we'll also see you pouring alcohol on Daniel. I'd like to settle this amicably, Kevin, before going to the police." "I'm sorry." Kevin, perhaps no longer feeling up to arguing under Alex's intimidating presence, apologized again, seemingly resigned. However, when he sharply reprimanded him with "You're apologizing to the wrong person," Kevin then turned to apologize to me. "I'm sorry, Daniel," he said. Although I wished he had simply apologized from the start without making excuses, I felt somewhat sorry for Kevin and chose not to say anything more. But what Kevin had done was unforgivable. "You claimed you could recruit more talented individuals than Daniel, but I disagree. Would truly talented individuals follow someone who judges others based on their educational background? Is it right for a superior to claim they're providing tough love while actually harassing others? I certainly don't think so. I would resign immediately from any company that harbors such individuals. Daniel has merely endured your harassment. You're absolutely right. As the CEO, I must take immediate action if I become aware of such harassment. Don't expect to advance in this company if you judge people by their education. Alex spoke these final words with a stern voice to Kevin. Kevin was left with no recourse but to hang his head. Soon after, Kevin was demoted to a regular employee at a regional branch. In fact, Alex was gifted. Being gifted means having innate abilities significantly higher than those of one's peers in certain areas, such as academics, arts, creativity, or language skills. Alex excelled particularly in mathematics and, like me, struggled to fit in during his early years. Despite being smart, he was ostracized by his peers and found classes uninteresting. The design company we have now was actually founded by him during his college years. He said that running the company allowed him to fully express his abilities for the first time, giving him a real sense of purpose. He invited me to his company partly because he saw his younger self in my isolation. That's why I couldn't just leave you alone. I'm truly sorry for the trouble Kevin caused you. No, it's not your fault, and please stop. It's not right for a boss to apologize to his subordinate. A few days later, when he came to check on me, we continued to work as usual, and he apologized for Kevin's behavior. I hurriedly stopped him. Kevin was my subordinate, and he caused you a lot of trouble. Besides, I will not be the CEO anymore. Could you keep in touch with me like before? Alex. Alex said this with a hint of loneliness. As we used to be close friends in Mensa, and it felt like reclaiming that. I'm counting on you to take good care of the company, Daniel. Alex smiled warmly, reminiscing. I successfully took over the presidency of the design company from Alex. Just as Alex found freedom to express his talents after starting the company, I too remember how meeting Alex made my life more enjoyable, as if it were just yesterday. The happiness of being in an environment where I didn't have to hide my talents and wasn't ostracized gave me a sense of purpose. Being gifted myself, meeting Alex made the world seem more enjoyable. Alex is now setting up a marketing company. Both of us are thriving, fully utilizing our talents. I continue to work as the CEO, occasionally involving myself in design work, and the company's performance was excellent. It was unimaginable in the past, but I now exchange business cards and network with various people at president's meetings. The employees also supported me. When Kevin was around, I was greatly indebted to everyone, so I felt even more grateful. And I am thankful not only to Alex, who brought a turning point to my introverted self, but also to Mensa. I occasionally host events for members, offering advice and networking opportunities to those who, like my younger self, face similar challenges. Having talent is great, but I strongly believe in the importance of also cultivating one's character.